Hello, and welcome to the Weshtern Philosophy Podcast. Two friends with oceans of notions discussing the unseen forces in our lives through the lens of music, mystery, and crack. We have a Patreon at Weshtern Philosophy Pod, don't forget the H. If you're enjoying the show and would like to see it grow, you can join this, or make a once-off donation via Ko-fi.com. Both links are in the show notes below. Today, we are thrilled to be joined by musician, poet, agus ridire ceoil Ghaelaigh Rónán Ó Snodaigh for a fascinating chat about discomfort.
Sometimes it can be so uncomfortable, or it goes on so long that you slightly fall out of love with the song. And you're thinking, you dragged me through this to write this? Presently, yeah, my mind is racing, and it has been racing about a year and a half on this particular song. And it is uncomfortable, and sometimes I'm embarrassed because I'm thinking, geez, I'm sitting down. Like, hard to lock myself up or even to justify that, because it mightn't be a good song. Do you know, the other thing in the back of your mind going, this better be good, it's taken so long. Like I could pull it towards me or...
No, you're good. I just want you to be comfortable and I can move the mic around you.
Cool.
That'll all be good. Bart, give us one more test 1 2.
Test 1 2. You want me to turn this up?
Yeah, a tiny bit more gain. Give us another.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2.
Oh, that's nice tea.
That's
fair play to you.
Yeah.
Like, this is the only place, other than a couple of garages late at night, that I drink. That's a fact.
I love that. Coffee all the way.
One other, yeah, but that has to, well, decaffeinated actually, mostly.
Yeah, I just we were heading up to do that project with you, and I just had a feeling, Rónán. I thought you might appreciate something.
Oh man, you
know.
gave me some tea from a bleeding mountain in China the last time. Like, collected by hand and all of that.
High Mountain Oolong, the good stuff.
Serious carry on. And I felt so guilty. I thought, this is wasted on me. I'm a Luddite.
No.
I can't stand tea.
No.
But tea it is.
That's it. Well, thank you for accepting the tea, Rónán.
Oh,
thank you for being here. Yeah, agus fáilte, Rónán, and
yeah.
very excited to have you here. I'm not gonna overemphasize the quote. I think anyone that listens is going to know who you are, Rónán, and we won't go too far into the. Sometimes I find it a bit tiresome to be describing people, because you're describing a lot of things they did in the past.
Yes, let's find out who I am.
Yes, see who are you today, Rónán?
Who am I today? Well, I'm Rónán. I was trying to imagine a role for myself. I've just driven across the country, and I imagine, but I'm kind of half embarrassed to say it, so maybe I should say it, get myself on the right step. I was imagining like trying to be a night of music, but ceoil Ghaelaigh. You know what I mean? Ceoil clown na Ghael, but trying to be that kind of thing. But really, the reason for that is because ridire is night.
Right.
It's a cooler phrase, and it sounds like ridire I dedal or dillion out house or diddly, you know.
And what would the difference between being a knight of music and a wandering bard? Is there a difference of intention, Rónán?
Oh, that's why I said the other bit. It's only the word. I wanted to use the word ridire. So maybe I'm overposing in me.
No, words are important.
You know? And it has a nice rhythm to it. It has a it has a Bowery kind of feel to it.
Exactly. I love when words do that, you know, and you get a rhythmical structure out of saying them, you know. Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you something just random for my sake? I love the bodhrán, and I love the way you play the bodhrán. I saw online the other day that someone gave you like a
little cajon box.
Yeah,
you saw that.
And that's such a random thing to ask you, but I was really curious how you got on.
So great, and he gave one. That's a fellow called Larkin Mitchell.
Yeah, give him a shout out. Yeah, nice.
Proper order. He's a cool guy. I have so much time for people who make their stuff.
And it looked cool as well.
In a way, and I understand people whose making their stuff is in front of their self-promotion or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know, he's so into making his stuff, he keeps forgetting to promote his company. Do you know? And I love that. So it's a little cajon, and I haven't spent enough time with it. Do you know? Only just trying to give him some shout outs. But like it's not, you saw he made a box and everything. He just looks like a competent person, but someone who's truly in love with what he's doing. It's like if you get pottery that someone's in love with it that day. Yeah. It's just going to resonate more than someone who's just chucking it, perhaps. That's kind of what 100%. I think. You know?
And is there something you're in love with at the moment?
Yeah.
Sorry, that I'm being a bit fucking directed, but
I like that, yeah. Well, let's start with me missus, right? That's cleared up.
Well done. Oh, from all the married men on this table, we say, well done.
And then, gallop along and everything. Yeah. But everything, like I really have been, I suppose I just drove across the country, so I do spend time trying to, either guide my thoughts or think or receive them or whatever, think about them. I was thinking about something my ma said once, and she was saying, you fall in love like loads of times a day, I remember thinking about that, and I'm only thinking about it now because I spoke about it last year, I was thinking, oh yeah, I've got a bit of that, like I love people, I love looking at them, I love stuff they do, I love, so in general then, if you kind of peel back from that and you go, oh, what am I getting into? It's some kind of a overall love. I mean, it's not a cure-all. It should be, but I can still fall out with myself or fall out with the world, or do you know what I mean? But in general, I'm kind of in love with everything around me,
And is that a bit of a choice, Rónán? Or
for sure. You kind of guide yourself, you nudge yourself into that. Do you know? Because if I really wanted to nudge myself into the other things, we could be talking about, all right, here's all the bees in my bonnet. Yeah. Here's all the people who annoy me.
100%.
Here's all the issues I want. And see when I'm king.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So there's a choice just to nudge yourself onto the love path and go, I actually, as well as all the other stuff, I'm kind of in love with everything and love it all. No,
it's a bit of a radical choice these days, Rónán.
Right, it can be, but you see, the truth is everyone is actually like that. Like everyone is in love with everything. Even, you know what I mean? And I'm just kind of going, all right, well, let's focus on it. It's like a little colour in the rainbow and go, let's just widen that a bit. You get more of the love then focusing on it's like mental discipline, no?
Yeah.
Do you know, that's what we're supposed to be doing. All right, that's what I thought. Do you know?
That's beautiful.
Staying away. Well, all the other stuff exists. I'm not a black belt,
Yeah.
I fall in and out of stuff, but generally, that's the idea. Like, you have a responsibility to aim at that. Otherwise, you're casting shadows. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm embarrassed by myself a lot of the time about my standard of behaviour, or even my lack of being with it, or do you know what I mean? Sometimes I don't wear my belt and I forget how many steps of the stairs I've climbed and I'm acting like a gong. Do you know? So most of the time like I said, I'm shuffling around a few bottom steps of the stairs. I say some fancy things, but I'm not Mr. Enlightenment. You know what I mean?
Well, those who say don't know, and those who know don't say. So, Bart, could you turn up your game?
Oh, I will, yeah. Thank you. You're saying a beautiful thing there when you came in, Rónán, when we hadn't the mics on, about the discomfort of
songwriting.
Is that all right to ask about that? Because I have that 100% when you're lying down. And I don't write as beautifully as you do, but like when you lie down in the bed and you're like, oh, lovely, I'm going to fall asleep, and suddenly someone drops something into your head, and you go, oh, fuck, I have to write that down because it's going to be gone otherwise. It's like an itch,
Yeah.
You speak to that.
It's like I was saying when I walked in, you were saying, what are you up to? And I was talking about it and saying how uncomfortable it is, like having a bad shirt on the whole time until it's finished. And then sometimes, weirdly enough, sometimes it can be so uncomfortable, or it goes on so long that you slightly fall out of love with the song. And you're thinking, you dragged me through this to write this? And you know what I mean? It's a funny relationship with a thought form or a word map that you're creating, like, I don't know. So but anyway, presently, my mind is racing, and it has been racing about a year and a half, on this particular song. And it is uncomfortable, and sometimes I'm embarrassed because I'm thinking, geez, I'm sitting down. Like, oh, I should be out doing something for what am I doing here? Yeah. So, I have to cut short, or sometimes I'm interrupted because I've life and lives to live, 100%. So hard to lock myself up or even to justify that to achieve this song, because it mightn't be a good song. Do you know, the other thing in the back of your mind, this better be good, it's taken so long. But it's kind of like a crossword puzzler, that kind of thing, you know.
And when are you going to find out if it's a good song? Is it going to be when you go, fuck yeah, I nailed it? Or is it going to be when people go, that really resonated with me?
Yeah, well, there's layers to that. Yeah, sometimes through the microscope you think you're onto the hugest thing in the world, and then you show it to the world, and the world doesn't see it through those lenses. You know, it's like, yeah. So it can be a good song to yourself, and then it can, you know what I mean. Like, when you're finished, there's a sense of relief, and then there's adventure. Sometimes a song doubles on itself, comes back off the wall, and you start growing with it. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it doesn't, you know.
Leonard Cohen said this thing. He said, "If I knew where the good songs came from, I'd go there more often." You know?
Right. Well, I think it's from. Well, no, I shouldn't cut across Leonard Cohen. No. Well,
Start the beef, Rónán.
I know, king of the crop, like.
Yeah.
But there is something to do with. It's like being under a rock. And trying to find a way out to roll it. Where's the centre of gravity and that big thing that's at me? You know, you want to achieve something, and you have to move this impossible thing through either your mind or your heart or your stutter or whatever you've got. And again, you're entering, for me anyway, and I'm only talking about myself really, but you're entering a phase of discomfort. And I suppose I'm only talking about it recently because I said, oh yeah, I'm writing this song, and someone else had said, oh, great. And I was like, what do you mean, great? Oh, man, it's
fucking shite.
Like, rawr. Do you know? So, but yeah, there is a great, at least I'm busy with my discomfort and my, you know, lesser attempts and everything. You know, I'm fully engaged with it. Like.
Can I ask you what might be a bit of a mad question, Rónán? So you're talking about discomfort and getting the song out and the feeling of like needing to find a point of balance. Do you like feel it in your body when you're writing songs?
Yeah, maybe I do. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Everything I've described is just discomfort. You know, it's, you know, like if you're dying for a fag because you've told yourself you need a cigarette. It's like that. It's like.
But can't the discomfort drive you into interesting places?
Well, of course. Of course. That's why I pursue this. Like you said, the other thing, is it a bit of a choice? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This is a choice, you know. I get some form of elation if I arrive, you know. My mind gets to work and assess all its absorbing and what it can do in the balancing act of inside there. So, yeah, it's my chosen path or occupation, or so you know there's a lot to it. You know,
it's a bit like birthing pain, I suppose.
Birthing pain.
I mean, just before we shouldn't say that as three lads sitting around the table, but I mean only in the sense of that you're creating something beautiful with its own life.
Yeah.
And of course it hurts. Now, it doesn't hurt as bad as all that. I'll not say that before I get into trouble. But
kicking the lad.
Yeah. I'm setting myself up for trouble. But I'll say you lads were looking at me disapprovingly.
We were talking, it's springtime obviously at the moment, and we were talking about Chinese philosophy as this idea of the 5 phases of energy. And then in wood phase, energy is tense and it's aggressive and it's a bit frustrated and it's a bit explosive. And that's the energy of spring. And the way I've always seen that is that you have these seeds underground that are safe underground, but they need to sprout. You have these baby lambs in their mama's wombs and they're comfortable in there, but they need to leave. Right. And it's that building, that kind of tension, almost like, labour pains or something, like that discomfort sometimes is
mental labour pains.
Yes, indeed.
Keep us on the right track. Keep us on the right track.
But we need that bit of discomfort sometimes. And and you can almost start to, it sounds like you have quite a positive relationship with this, Rónán. Like you're not sugarcoating it, but you're also, you know, is it maybe a little bit of a whisper on the wind that something good is coming when you start to feel that discomfort?
Yeah. You've put it right there. And I know I'm trying to, and again, choice is the key to, I'm trying to follow a variation of a path, artistic path. Do you know what I mean? So, if an idea comes, my aerials pick it up. You know what I mean? If they tell me this, well, I go and do that. Do you know? So yeah, I'm purposely putting myself into these discomforts to try and come up with some artistic result from my pursuit that can hopefully either alleviate the neural clog up in myself and make that audio. So hopefully, I like words. I mean, I actually like poetry. You know, I love when it works. It's like good punching. It's just, that was funny to say that, but because I was thinking distilling, because you distill and distill and distill and distill, and then you find something where the words seem woven with each other. Oh God, they all belong. You don't imagine them apart, you know. I love that effect of poetry, but so yeah, I'm chasing that as much as I can, you know.
Butching is like clear.
Yeah, that's what.
And when you're like, when you just come in the door there and you said, I'm still on this thing. There's a real clarity in your eyes.
Yeah.
Where I'm thinking like, you've really done this channeling thing.
Go on.
A few times.
And what do you mean channeling?
I suppose I believe that those songs that we receive them and we are the channel that puts them out, but maybe not. Maybe you're also the hands that make them, and you have to do the admin of it.
Well, I can understand why people say channeling, because it keeps you off the ego attachment.
This is it.
And it's probably both things are true.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, because it's hard work as well. Like, and you have to put it in.
I remember I had a great conversation with me ma, and I remember putting it to her once. I was kind of young enough. It was like, all right, I was into philosophy when I was about 17. I was trying to read all these books. And I said, so how do you know, because I thought it was really clever, you know, how do you know if the tree makes a sound in the woods if you're not there to see it? Do you know what I mean? And if you think of that philosophically, you're touching on Schrodinger's cat theory, that our observation of something affects the world around us. And then is it true if we're not looking at it, or does it make a sound and all that? Anyway, she thought about it for a bit and she said, well, I do know that the tree is in the woods. I says, well, how have you got proof? And she says, because I carved at the back of it. And I went, oh, that's a good answer. I hadn't thought of that. So when you engage, you have your verification of earth and all of this stuff. You don't have to doubt it or believe some of the others, you just don't have to doubt it. You did it. I moved that stone. I put it there. When I go out, it'll be there because I put it there. I said so. I did so. That's it. Why would you doubt what you just did? It's really interesting, you know. And it's just to stop the fluttery side of that, asking questions about the whole universe, you know. Anyway, but yeah, I was thinking about it. It's good, isn't it?
That really got me there. I was like, but I don't understand why. But that's the thing about, I suppose that's why I use channeling as well. Because these things that I find so very beautiful, often I don't understand cognitively why it's so beautiful.
You have to take it in.
But when you said that, I was like...
Yeah, well, same. I got that message when I was 19. Yeah. And I just cleaned up about half a year of studying this other stuff. And I was like, oh, all right, that's... And then you go on to the artistic path. And you make things manifest, isn't it? You go, I'm going to make something manifest. And I'm not going to doubt it because it'll exist after I made it. You know what I mean? There's a few things to it, but... Yeah,
I'm thinking about relationship as well. Like your mom now has a relationship with that tree. Like until forever, that tree will be carved by your mum and your mother will be the woman who carved it.
Right,
you know? Right. So then, of course, you can't doubt it because you're in relationship with something.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. That's another layer. Right. That's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that bit. I was only sticking to that bit as a kind of a roadmap or a guide for the mind, you know.
I was at a wee kind of poetry workshop thing, the Salmon Poetry Publishing House in Ennistimon.
Yeah.
And there was a few people presenting poems, and there's a lady there called Miriam who writes basically like slice of life poems about nature and the farm and stuff like that. And I'm going to do her a disservice here, but she had this line. She was like, nature never needs to rush, but everything is its own place or something like this. And I saw it and I was kind of half stunned, and I was like, I wanted to tell her, I was like, there's one of the oldest Chinese philosophers, Zhuangzi, has this quote about Taoism, which is, nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. And I was like, she'd basically written it. I was like, Zhuangzi wrote this 2,000 years ago. People are still losing their mind over it. And I was like, you've just dropped it into this gorgeous little poem about new lambs. But then I was like, of course she did, because she is somebody who observes the natural world. And over decades of observation, she will start to understand it. Yeah. So we can put philosophy on this big high platform, can't we? We could play mental games with it and so on. But you relate it to the world, and that's a different thing. I think that's more impressive.
Finding the same revelations. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, no?
Yeah.
Of course. Exactly.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
Good.
Mm-hmm. I just in the car now. This is going to be a bit embarrassing because I have zero, like a big flaw in me is I have zero Ghaeilge, and I'm gonna remedy that at some stage. But I love your song, so I can't pronounce it. Tanta Long.
Yeah.
That's a little pearl of a thing, because what I get from that, and I can't, like I've looked at translations of it and stuff, but hopefulness for me is one of the biggest emotions that just always gets me there. And I think that's such a hopeful song, and it moves me every time, even though, like I said, the Irish I have to still work at. Do you look at something like that and go, yeah, that was a pure deed?
Yep.
Okay, done.
like
Thanks. Carry on.
Yeah. It's like scoring a goal, no?
Yeah.
It went in the back of the net. Cool. Now you go back and you kick off again. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what you're meant to do?
Oh, well, 100%. Yeah. But it's on every level, because I think the words are beautiful, but then the sound of your voice in it as well is very deep and very, it's nearly Bodhrán-y, you know.
Well, and it's not just that. The receiver of that was Miles, you see.
Yeah.
And we kind of half hinted at that before we were starting. You know, you said something, I was talking about being in your own mind, writing things or whatever, and you said, it's great to have someone to bounce off.
Yeah.
That makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Do you know? So, like, it really does. You know, if you bounce it off someone who's not bouncing it back the best way, it won't come back the best. Mm-hmm. Like, that's bounced off Miles there. Miles is he's a high priest of good Jedi musical activity, you know. Mm-hmm. He really is, like, you know. So
100%.
I was, you know, it went into his cradle and came back out of it.
Yeah.
As a real thing, you know.
And those, like, because those would you call them synthesizers? I love that as well, because it's electronic, but it feels really natural.
It's interesting.
It's nearly like trees kind of talking. Am I still too low,
yes,
brother?
Please. Yeah,
sorry.
Is
that all right?
Is it this one? I'll adjust it as you do.
Yeah, you work away. Yeah. But so that's beautiful. But also, he's a very different energy. Like, I remember seeing you guys in Hotel Doolin that night. Me and Anthony were sitting at the back. And you're both very different high priests, aren't you?
Yeah, completely.
Which is kind of what you need.
Yes, and it's great. I mean, anyway, we're still at it. Like, we really are, and learning about each other in each other's company and everything. You know, it's still quite exciting. You know, and because of that we're different. We're quite different. You know. In a lot of ways, you know. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm just thinking of the process, Rónán, of like making a song inside yourself, you know, and then there's that second bit where you've released the song out into the world, but then there's the third bit where the song comes back to you, where you can see it reflected in people, and I guess that's where, like, a good partner like Miles is, you know, essential.
Yeah. Like. And I couldn't say it enough, but it makes all the difference. You know, like, music, it's like, let's go back to football for a second. It's like juggling the ball and all of that you can do when you're taught. But as soon as you're with someone, you're doing something. It's activated. The game is on. On your Todd, you're playing. You know what I mean? It's music is a thing for me that happens between people.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be person and an audience as well. Yeah, but, you know, but it's just, I find that it's always better when it's combined with somebody playing, you know. That's what I think.
100%. It's all so relational anyway. Geez, I just remembered something really funny that happened today. I was talking to my friend back in Holland, and she has an Irish friend in her little, like, tiny little village in the south of the Netherlands. And she came up to her today and she said, "Have you ever heard of this band, Ghaelaigh? Fucking brilliant." And I was like, "You're joking." That sort of thing happens to me so often these days that I'm like, I don't know what the synchronicities are, but that's mental.
Yeah, and if you I'd say it kind of to be expected if all your things are working right, no?
Oh, that's a nice way of looking at it. Yeah.
That's what informs. Well, for times I'm not always tuned into everything, but sometimes when all the coincidences start happening, I feel, all right, I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right thing.
100%.
You know what I mean? It's like a reaffirmation or something. Yeah, cool. You know,
because you talked about your areoles earlier, Rónán.
Yeah.
Is there anything you do to maintain the health of your areoles, or is that out of your hands altogether?
Well, that's. I don't think it is. I think you can. For me, do you know the way? Like, you have to shower a few times. You know what I mean? So you're not smelly. You know. I think you have to do that with your mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Something like that. You know. But I'm not an expert. You know, I'm not an expert. And I'm not as better dígurasach as I have been sometimes in my life. Do you know? I'm a little bit. I'm gone a little bit soft. You know, in some areas. Do you know? But you can do it. You can keep your mind tuned, active, and it's embarrassing. I remember talking to someone about a friend of mine, gorgeous friend of mine, just took off. Simon Taylor, an absolute teddy bear, real sweetheart. He's on the big bus now. But I'm losing my train of thought thinking about him. What was I waffling about?
Keeping your areoles clean.
Yeah.
Being softer.
I was talking to him about practice a few weeks ago, and I was saying, listen, there's the trick, you know. And he said, what? And I was like, if you just practice, because he'd stopped music for a while, and it's hard. I was going, you can lose the path, but the path is always there, Simon. You know what I mean? You can get back on it. I'll show you a trick. I said, get the clock, do an hour, diddle-a-diddle-a, and I said, and again, I'll be using that word uncomfortable. It's not fun. It's not nice. Because what you're doing is confronting your limitations, and you're confronting the fact that you're not as good as you want to be because you're practicing. So, you know, practicing's weird. You sound cat, you hear all your clicks, everything you do isn't as good as you want to be. And every month or so, you get a day where this is a doddle, I can do everything. But I was saying, you put in an hour's practice, and once you know this is going to be, I'm going to feel less of a version of myself than I was before I practiced. That's just what you feel. The opposite becomes true. But you feel like, I'm so not as good as I want to be. You know what I mean? Because you're practicing it. The information's real. You can feel it as you practice. Go, oof, I wish I was better at that. You know. But if you do it, and you do your hour or your second hour or whatever way you run it, without knowing it, you're on the escalator again. You've already moved. Sometimes it feels like forever. Sometimes you just turn and you go, God, I'm way ahead of where I was. You know, I'm not the bleeding expert, but I was just chatting to Simon about trying to get him back on track. Anyway. Yeah.
But
Thought I had him. You know, he was going along with it. And then I got a phone call. Brian said, sit down, Ron. I said, what? He said, sit down. I said, all right. Sat down. Brian told me Simon's he's gone, you know. It's all over the shop. Totally all over the shop, like spinning around the kitchen. You know. And then I went to ring Simon. Yeah, and then when I did that, I was like, all right, out, let's go for a walk. I'm all over the place, you know what I mean? But I know dusted it off and done that there. But I don't know, like I was saying earlier, like I'm in love with so many people, as if I'm some kind of, I'm not a holy Joe or anything. you know, it's like the more people go, the more you realise that people are really beautiful. The whole thing is profoundly beautiful, delicate. Any second now, it could be all arseways, or you could have a shadow on your... Any shit could go either way, you know. And maybe if I was to waffle as in, maybe they should teach this in school a bit. They really could. We could all know a little more about how... But I know, sure, we're human beings, we're fellas. We do what we want until we're stopped, isn't it? You know, until the wall hits us back and it's like, all right, wall, I know you're there now. But you do think, God, you know, if you only knew, you know. Anyway, I imagine with all my waffle that it could be a kinder place. But even me, I'm talking about me, like, why don't I realise all the time that, you know, life is fragile, be calm, be kind all the time. I'd love if I could hover on that, like monk sort of train of thought, and it could... And I do sometimes by use of chatting people up or being nice or saying thanks to someone or Gura Mahagat at the bleeding toll bridge. Or, do you know what I mean? It's like cleaning your mind. That's what I think it is. But anyway, sometimes, just saying, sometimes when people go, it reminds you, oh God, you know, we need to do that a bit more. Tell more people about that. You know, this is as good as it gets. This is truly glorious to get to hang out and be fucking lads. Do you know what I mean? Honestly.
Fucking glorious.
Yeah, because the other crack doesn't exist. You know what I mean? When you're gone, you're gone. There's no chatter. There's none.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Anyway. So yeah, I'm only bringing that up because it really does, again, reminds me. It's like, oh no, this is it. This is life. This is it. We're not preparing for nothing. We're in the role. This is the escalator and we're balls flicking up and down in it. Like what do you call that game the Americans play?
Oh, a flipper, I don't know.
You know, when you have
the foosball, or is
not
it
foosball, no, when you bang off.
Pinball.
Pinball.
That's it,
what
Jesus.
We're the ball in a pinball. One, two, life. Crack. You know.
Oh, true.
That should be a Dolly Parton song. I'm a ball in a pinball machine. Crackety, crackety, crackety.
Well, we'll send this on to her, and I'm sure it'll be a great hit. You get some copywriting.
I'm a ball in your pinball machine. Hit me from the left and the right. She released a new song recently. Beautiful Dolly Parton.
She's a hero. She's an absolute hero.
True troubadour. Yeah. Amazing. But yeah, she released a song about her fella. Fair play to her. He took off as well. You know, I have to listen to it properly. I stuck half of it on and tuned into it.
I read somewhere, I hope it's true, but I read somewhere that she wrote Jolene and Holding Out for a Hero within 24 hours of each other.
Yeah. I actually went up, because I was watching a programme with Jane Fonda and some other girl, and they were on that film 9 to 5 together. Whereas 9 to 5 she wrote is that's what I thought.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, work 9 to 5.
She went upstairs and wrote that. Wow.
Yeah.
Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, so sometimes we were talking about songwriting, and I can hear how I sound like, geez, I'm a really deep, interesting individual engaged with, you know, stuff. And you look at someone like Dolly Parton, who cracking a whip, one of the best songs in the world, just dropped it like an egg in a basket. Yeah. Next, you know what I mean?
Oh, man. The thing I always think of her is I saw a video where she's on one of these American talk shows and she has like these huge acrylic nails and she's still playing like all the chords. Yeah. And I'm like, how? My nails are always clipped and I still can't manage it. But it was kind of like a nice metaphor for her having to carry her beauty as well as her talent, kind of in a way, I think. Yeah.
How do you manage that, Rónán?
The beauty, your beautiful locks.
Some form of prayer, and some form, and I just mean that in mental pathways, like I was saying, and some form of, we're not here to look at ourselves.
Yes.
We're not even here to pay. There's some kind of attention we shouldn't pay to ourselves. There's some kind that we should, do you know?
Yeah.
Like, do you know, but there's something to what I'm saying. I haven't quite figured it all out yet, but We're not. I could talk myself around a circle, but there's something about that, about it's not about us, perhaps. Even though, like everything I'm saying, I spend the time in my head, and it's kind of all about us, but only in the way to try and make it not about us. Do you know?
Yeah.
There's something about what I'm saying that, and I remember going, oh yeah. If you just skip around that thought and you go, all right, we're actually at our best when we're doing something for someone else.
Yeah.
100%.
Because it's bigger than us.
And that's the same for all of humanity.
Yeah.
We're at our best. That's when we can do, and it's also, we're not thinking about ourselves. We're not looking at ourselves. How do I look as I walk past doing this thing for someone else? Because you caught up in the thing you're trying to do for someone. Yeah. If it's a real thing. And that's where we're kind of at our best. There's something, I'm not saying it's gone missing in humanity. It mightn't be. Like, everything might be grand. It's just that I'm uncovering these things for myself as I'm going, all right, that's an actual truth. Right. So we're probably, if I'm allowed to jump that way, here to do something that isn't just to do with ourselves then. If that's us at our best, because in theory, you're here to do your best, to be your best, be your most beautiful self, or be, you know what I mean? I think so. Some people think everything's in the world, all the different variations, but that's what I think, to bring yourself up. But the way of self-aggrandizement isn't what I'm talking about. It's not we're here to look at me and have these muscles and I can think this fast. I can meditate deeper than you. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever the competitive thing is. It's not about that. So,
well, you were talking about your friend Rónán and how it gave you things like this give you perspective. Like when I'm working with very ill people, you see how useless a lot of superficial stuff is. Yeah. Like if somebody's in chronic pain, then like they don't care how big their house is, they don't care about how many holidays they've been, but what's really interesting then is what they do care about. When people are very sick, when people have like an hour or two of energy a day, or like, I'm really interested in what those people then spend that time on, and you're right, Rónán, it's often on other people or creative pursuits, legacy. And for me, like you, I'm just exploring these things. I think we'll probably never stop exploring them. I think anyone who says they have an answer is probably lying. But for me, I just think about it as just shit that's bigger than us. I think there's a lot of stuff that we create that's smaller than us. Like if your whatever, your car, your bank balance, whatever, that's smaller than you. But there are things that are bigger than you that will last after you're gone.
And it's to get it out of the way, I suppose, when you're like a few things you've said now been kind of about getting out of the way, about getting the ego out of the way, looking at the other person, kind of.
Yeah, and in a way, there's sort of probably guidelines that I use to try and guide myself. I remember I was laughing a few months ago. I was saying, "What do you do for a living?" I try and not be a gobshite.
It's a good one for all of us, yeah.
Because there's another version of me that's a total gobshite. Do you know what I mean? So I just try and keep steering away from that, and if I become it, and if I'm reminded, hopefully I'm awake enough to go, oh, being a gobshite again, reverse. Do you know what I mean?
Are you able to be kind to yourself when you step back into the gobshite, Rónán?
Well, when I step back into the gobshite,
or when you
feel you're coming too close to gobshiteness.
No, I get myself. I'm living inside myself the whole time, like so. Well, of course, but. I remember telling another fella, this is an interesting thing. You talk about living inside yourself, and I heard you hearing me say that phrase like it's not new, but it isn't either. If do you ever hit someone proper? Now, for me, I know that's been the most unlivable inside myself that I've ever felt in my entire life. That's when you're a kid and you run home because you know you hit someone. You know you hurt them. Couldn't live with myself. It's the worst feeling in the world. And I think that's just a human, natural feeling. And I suppose kids, you do all of these things ups and downs, so you learn where your electric fences are. But that's a position when you're covered in shame, self-shame. You've let yourself down. You didn't know that you could or would, or you don't know what's happening to you. But that's what it is. So, you know. So yeah, you have to live inside yourself. So you kind of, yeah, it's tricky because I'm only talking about myself. I'm not talking about huge psychology that's applicable to all of mankind or anything, because there's all the deviations and variations of people. But you kind of try and mind yourself so that you can live with yourself and you're all right with your stuff. Otherwise, you have to make up some excuse, don't you? You know, create a lie to live by.
No, that's true. I think
justify something that you're not in charge of. Or
I think that's a really cool way of looking at it. Is when people start lying, it's quite often because they can't live in this version of themselves.
Yeah, something like that. It's got to be, you know. So, but as for me, yeah, most of it, I'm happy enough inside myself, you know.
I like the example of hitting someone because I've hit people and I've been hit.
Right, yeah.
And I'd much rather be hit.
There you go. And the reason I said that, I was having a chat with somebody and I was going, you know, I like going a little bit too far in a conversation.
Yeah, that's nice.
Rings. Yeah. And I was going, winning is for losers.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And I says, well, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's pointless. You get nothing out of beating anyone. Have you ever gone and beaten someone? There's part of you that's devastated, like.
Yeah.
And I was going, and that's interesting. I was going, I could be going too far, but it was, look, just hold the line there for a second. Because what I'm trying to say is all the realities exist at the same time, and you're choosing how to steer your car, boat, whatever. But like winning, it's not as far as my experience. It was a funny conversation. Someone was a fella chatting, juvenile chatter in a pub. You know, he was into the fighting. I used to love fighting, you know. And I was going, geez, I lost all my fights, you know. And loved it all, like, you know. But I have a thing about hurting someone. Like, I absolutely hate it. I fret, you know what I mean? I don't want anything to do with that. But I've still got all the urge to, if someone and I want to clock him, so he feels a deliverance of my message, you know what I mean? And it stays on him. Do you know what I mean? We've all got those feelings. You want to connect, clock, bang.
Feels a deliverance of my message. Brilliant.
But when it actually happens, and this is a fella thing, and it's worth saying because no one else says it, what you feel like dirt.
Yeah.
You don't like yourself all of a sudden because you know you violated something and it's really difficult to forgive yourself. It takes, and I think everybody does it. See you getting hit around, it's a doddle.
Yeah.
Losing a fight's a doddle. We're built to recover. Unless someone's, you know, but you've been hit. I've been kicked around. Grand. And what?
Yeah.
You know, you catch your breath and you clean or whatever. You go home. Like, we're a lot more capable of all of that than we think. We grow up with a fear of impact. But just most of it's harmless, like 99, as far as I'm only talking about my stuff, but
and winning is winning's dangerous because we were talking about this over the weekend. But like, we all see the Hollywood movies, right, where the cool guy beats the shit out of three scumbags and walks off into the sunset. But in reality, if you live in a small town in Ireland, if you win a fight, it's a lot more dangerous than losing a fight because now you've pissed off multiple people and they know they'll lose in a fair fight.
You live. Well said, Anthony.
There's going to be a 2x4 taken to the back of your head some night. And then, okay, so I've won the fight, but now where am I?
So here's where, if we're talking winning, it depends on how you win.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, if you don't win with any courtesy, if you haven't got any standards in your, and this is where we get into something interesting, which will bring us into the modern day right straight away, straight through the door, because, and I'll jump into it, see what the Israelis are at, right?
Yeah.
And I have to call this out. There's no standard. There's no courtesy. There's no actual respect. There's no dignity afforded. There's no human rights or any caveat of shelter or basic stuff like water and fresh air. Do you know what I mean? There's no mercy shown. We're humans. We all live here. So I could be talking about the Chinese or the Africans or whatever. There's all these different people. But this crowd, what they're displaying to us now is like when you're in school and some bully is going over the top on the poor kid.
Yeah.
And he's still at it. And you've had the lunch break and you're in the class and he's still out there banging, and you kind of go, you kick the head off him. Get off him. Carry on with it. And he runs out and has another go at him and you're kind of like, all right, I think we're dealing with something else here. Yeah. There's an absence of our natural philosophy at work because so that's what I'm seeing. I'm going, the standards are breaking down.
Yeah.
Because when the standards are lowered, well, it brings everyone else's standard.
Yeah.
Like, if there's, and I'm talking trained army. I'm not just talking lads.
No, of course.
On a rage.
Yeah.
And this is a trained army. And they're involved in, wiping out kids and women or people who are injured or people who have disabilities. They don't care who they're killing anymore because we've seen it on the footage. And when you're doing that, and all we have is our reference to the Germany thing where they went into the non-morality thing, where they went, we'll just execute all of them because we don't like them. And we all had to go, I thought the philosophy was, no, we're going to afford each other some human rights. Great idea, lovely theory, we can run. But and all of that. And so let's just back to the schoolyard. The crack, instinctually. Everybody knows, because that's what kids do. An aggro starts, everyone gathers around, hullabaloo, HTRO. And as soon as it gets warpy, everyone walks away, or people jump in.
Yeah.
That's natural.
Yeah.
Probably for hyenas and dogs and tigers.
Yeah.
Do we all know. You don't have to doubt or question yourself. We know. Yeah. That's the crack. That lot over there in that place in the world are at something a bit. Yeah, they're at the real dodgy stuff.
Well, you said when we were just sitting down here, you were saying about passing stuff down the line. Yeah. I think that's the real problem, isn't it? Like when Germany went into that non-morality and then that shadow doesn't get dealt with and then now it's transferred onto them and now they're doing it now. And it's just like the ripples.
The other lad are gonna, because you know what I mean? Like it just put a 2 and 2 together. If that was my cousins getting kicked around. Yeah, you'd be like, yeah, man.
It's so,
and you'd have.
But it just begets more and more and more and more. Yeah,
yeah, it's a cycle. It's so stupid. And then and one of the reasons I started writing this song, I'm on about it, and it'd be a tiny little song. So I don't like talking about things I'm at generally, but was about that. Was like because I remember hearing myself. There was some time a year ago, going, I am so cross. I am so cross with that lot. And I was just about to say the next phrases. And I went,
Yeah.
I'm the exact same. I have to rethink about everything that's going on. If I can be as bad as them because they pissed me off in my telephone, bombing innocent or just bombing kids. Come on, man. No man should be raised to go hit. You don't even raise your voice to a woman, but you feel embarrassed. Like, look what's going on with that. It's just so far out of our normal sphere that it's hard for us to even understand.
But I love the next point you were saying, like I can be that. I think that is the one where what I don't like it is when people miss that part out.
Right, yeah.
When they go, I have to be aware of my shadow.
But that's why I was talking about the ridire thing, or I was trying to make up some goal or standard for myself to be aiming at, because I can't accept that in myself. And maybe I was waffling about the love on purpose so much, going, steer the mind while I have a chance. Yeah. Because I could get brought up there and be filled up with that holy stuff and have all of that convoluted stuff in me head, and they have to get it for this and that. Any of us could be subject to that brainwashing or philosophy.
And I think that's the most power we have is to go, what am I at? We were having a chat yesterday actually about someone we know who was always very strongly opposed to certain things, but never looking inward. And opposed to something. The guy is turning into that now because he doesn't do the checking that you did. And I think that's the main thing.
So there's a thing, and I might have said it before. I say it a few times, but it's a simple parable. It's a kung fu parable. There's two circles. There's the red circle and the blue circle. Right? Red circle, attack. Simples. Impact sports. Blue circle, defend and heal. That's all they do. If anyone from the blue circle is confronted with someone from the red circle, and if they react, they become red circle. Now, they may go and win and beat the living daylights out of whatever's in front of them, but they're not in the blue circle anymore as soon as they react. So there's something that works for me, again, like a mental guide, parallel. Do you know what I mean? I don't know why I'm saying that, but it's good to know what the landscape is. There's the map, red and blue.
Well, what I love about that, Rónán, is the symbol of it. Like we could talk about something like this forever, but like I can see what you're talking about. And you were even talking about taking on, like, wearing the coat of the ridire. Like, I think sometimes we need to call stuff in that's a bit bigger than ourselves in order to... give me
a code to guide my mind, because like I said, I sometimes I feel embarrassed by being given this amount of attention. I think, all right, well, I've lived some good, I can share it. I'm not as good as I want to be. You know what I mean? I'm not like I'm not the finished article. I'm working on this, I'm working on that. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I could be subject to any of that. If all the ducks went arseways in a row on me, I'd be so embarrassed of what would come out of me.
But I suppose the reason you're getting this positive attention is because you've got that awareness too.
Right.
And that vulnerability, which makes me really drawn to what you're doing, is because it's not just like, look at me doing this cool thing, doing that cool thing, but actually like, also guys, I don't know, I'm not sure, maybe I'm trying.
Trying not to be a gobshite.
Staying away from the fucking gobshite,
Yeah, because there's a million variations. Like, there's other reactions, there's even other ways of talking that I could be at. And I'd go out of here and I feel let down. You can't just keep letting yourself down. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you have any standards, you gotta pull your bleeding shit up and, you know what I mean? Make good, do good, be good. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand people involved in that stuff. They let themselves down so much. It's like, how could you live with that? Would that not be uncomfortable? Having been involved, and you know that the army, the brigade you're in, just went and clipped a few young fellas today. Would you not go to sleep a little crawly going, oh, I know that. I should tell on them. I sure, but the other fella did it, and the other fella did it. And sure, what are we doing here anyway? I can't imagine what it must be like for those young fellas in the Israeli army, is what I'm trying to say. Never mind what's it like on the other side, getting kicked around them. But like, how... Whoa.
But it's that red circle, blue circle thing, isn't it? Because I've treated Vietnam veterans.
Right.
They're fucked.
Yeah, there you go.
They're screwed, and they're screwed by what they did, what they were forced to do. They had fucking Agent Orange dropped on them by their own country. Like, they're... You know, what America did there was terrible. But Jesus Christ, the American soldiers did not come out of it well either. You know? Like, this stuff... What's it? Don't fight monsters, let you become a monster kind of thing.
That's the red circle, blue circle thing. That's what I'm trying to say. Because I remember years ago, before things got, and we'll get off this subject as well, but like, I was kind of agaidiachting for this about 25 years ago, you know. They were kind of at stuff back then as well. So
it's been a long time.
Yeah, there's a bit of, that's what they do about it at this stage. I'm not sure should I be focused on it or anything. It's just gone up a notch in the last year, where it just seems like, should this be allowed in the world? Or is there a way of diffusing this? Is there? And there mightn't be. Like, the dogs are gone loose. Like, things have gone into another place altogether, you know. Like I said, it's no standards. That scratches the head. Like, they can just blow up a building if they think someone's in, and they're running AI and drones, and you're like, lads, calm down.
Yeah.
It's anyway.
I think it's what you were saying about the discomfort in your own body.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that. I think when there's already so much pain and intergenerational pain, that people are already so far out of themselves because of all that. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I went to see, when I was in college, we went to a museum or an exhibition of ex-Israeli soldiers who wanted to show what they had done because they were so remorseful. It was one of the most painful things I've ever witnessed. These lads were torn because they had just that, enough of that at a certain point, enough self-reflection where they were like, fuck, and they will never be free, you know. And it was like, and they were doing, and
it was the reason I was saying it was that I think it was me missus said it first ages ago. Sarah, she said that was her thing when we were doing the stuff for Gaza way back when. Yeah. She was going, the Israelis are destroying their youth.
Yeah.
You can't be setting people these goals and having them executed and think you're going to have anything left of a society. Mm-hmm. You can't just run them 3 years in a military and expect them to be musicians, poets, dramatiers. I don't know, anything more interesting than a military machine. It's like, no, but they want the military reassurance of being top dog. It's a... Anyway, I haven't a clue. I'm delighted I'm over here. And I will try and pursue an understanding of anything because it's a real thing. It's in the world. It is a big threat to the whole fabric of the world when there's a race that's in total panic trauma mode.
Well, this is what I think it is, trauma mode.
They're swanning around in Tel Aviv, and I've been there. It's a beautiful city. They have it all running and going, but anyway, they've just gone somewhere else now.
We had a beautiful chat here at this table with Flann Garvey, who local politician who did work on the Northern Irish peace process. And his whole message was people need to sit with their enemies. But I just don't know however that's going to happen over there.
Well,
I don't know.
One thing Flann did was it was not governmental. It was small communities linked with small communities. It was people linked with people, and
because the governments are.
I think when you start to look for these things to have top-down solutions, I think you might be waiting a long fucking time. Because there's people
have to just go at it.
And as your lovely poem piece broke out in the garden shows, Rónán, there are certain people that love conflict and thrive in it and do not want it to end.
Thistle, the nettle, and the briar.
Yes,
because they're made for it. Like, it's always such a good poem. Like, we love that. Yeah, we've mentioned it a fair few times on here.
Good.
Yeah. Good. Get the good word out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We should nearly wrap up now. Otherwise, I'll start repeating myself and sound.
You've been fucking brilliant.
Recording bits.
It's been a pleasure, Rónán.
Likewise, Anthony. Delighted to be here again.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for doing it. No.
For the call.
And I that's a lot of that is gonna stay with me now, especially about scratching the itch of the creative process.
That's funny, isn't it? Itch, scratch it.
This is it.
Oh, yeah.
Cheers, Rónán.
Thanking you. Go to Margot's.
To Falcher Road.
This has been Weshtern Philosophy. Follow us on all the socials at Weshtern Philosophy Pod. If you want to support the podcast, you can join our Patreon to help the show grow or make a one-off donation via the Ko-fi link in the episode description. We'll be back next week with more chats and another topic. Slán.